Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 490 of Putin's invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Olexiy Arestovych, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician, lawyer, and blogger. Thank you for your continuous support. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Cinnamon. And thank you, Katerina. Your kind help is much appreciated. And with that, let's dive into day 490. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, June 28th. Time is 3 minutes past 10. Same time in Moscow as in Kiev. Day 490 with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Good evening, Mark. We have 60,000 starting with us. 13,000 click the like button. I ask our viewers to continue sharing links to that stream in their social media. And do not forget to click the like button. This is important to bring new eyeballs in the recommended list of YouTube and bring new viewers to that stream. And of course, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. All right, let's start with the last couple days we missed since Monday, and there were some events that happened. I'm meaning the consequences of that fake mutiny of Prigozhin. In some media, which is not confirmed yet, there were even rumors that General Surovikin was arrested, who was connected with Prigozhin, and he was the second phase of that special military operation. However, another General Yudin came out and said that no, it's not right, not true. Surovikin was not arrested and not in jail, but the topic is interesting. The continuation of that mutiny in the aspect of return terror and punishment for everyone who is involved. So, in your opinion, do you think how probable is the continuation? We discussed the destiny of Wagner and his troops and officers, that's one thing, but there are other people, right? There are other contractors and other contacts that were working with Wagner. So, also, we understand that there will be some punishment. Somebody will be found guilty who basically let Wagner column to get as close as 200 kilometers to Moscow. Do you see any probability that this will continue? Mark, were commanders of Wagner arrested in Syria, or is that fake as well? Well, that's another curious angle. There was another piece of information that in Syria, by Syrian security forces and Russian military, supposedly some Wagner troops were disarmed. So far, we cannot verify that information. There is no independent media there, so it's impossible to verify what actually happens there. It's difficult to say, Mark. This decision is not analytical. It's difficult to calculate that. It is a private decision of Putin and a small group of people who will be making decision whom to arrest, not to arrest, how to punish, how to destroy certain elements. There are some arguments pro and con, and of course we understand why the push to punish people, that's obvious, for those who supported Wagner or those who did not act on their duties and did not stop this way. And there are other arguments also. Right now, the generals are considering the punishments and all. If they do not get reprimand after this event, they might actually gather together and reconsider and maybe do another one. Remember, in Stalin days, he actually tried to punish his generals after the Second World War, but he failed to do so. But he was seriously thinking about it. Well, he punished some people. Yeah, some, but not marshals, not the top level. True. Punished others, but not the top level marshals. So your prognosis is that it's too early to predict that, but it's difficult to exclude that. Yeah, as I said, there are arguments pro and con on both decisions, so we can observe what happens. We started a poll here that I think is reflective of another question we would like to ask. Will the second phase of the special operation, so-called, in Russia, General Surovikin, and in his phase we mean the whole group of people, Prigozhin, Mizintsev, and others, will he be arrested? 13% says yes, no, 28%. Nobody gives a flying F about him, and that's about 30%. And it's a good question. Who even needs these generals if they're so incompetent fighting their wars? Please start joining this poll. We want to measure your, so let's say, audience temperature, and it will see if Russia will go through some purge of generals, just like Germany went through the one after the Valkyrie failed back in the 1940s. So, Lukashenko, president of Belarus, actually did come out, and he even continued a little bit today. But in general, his statements are very inconclusive. He did say that he's not going to make any bases for Wagner, that he did get some nukes from Russia, but Wagner has nothing to do with that. That yeah, they still needed in Belarus to train some of the Belarus troops to share some of their experience, but there's no clear answer. Why do you need Wagner in Belarus, and will they even be there? Those 8,000 that participated in this march on Moscow. There are no guarantees, at least from the side of Lukashenko, for anything happening with them. Why would he? Why does he need 8,000 people with a questionable reputation? That sounds pretty idiotic if you think about it. Imagine I come to you and tell you, I have a wonderful employee, Mark. He actually mutineered against me and tried to kill me, but he is an amazing employee. Please take him. Who would be an idiot to take that person? If Wagner shows up in Belarus in reasonable, sizable quantities, I'll be very, very surprised. Me too, Olexiy, but some people are insisting on that. I think it's fairy tales. One needs to be an idiot to let Wagner's in Belarus. Is Lukashenko, does he look like an idiot? He is a strange person in many aspects, but I think he's been demonstrating for 30 plus years that caution is his second nature, an ability to get out of any difficult situation. So he might invite instructors, maybe 20 people, maybe 100. He might accept commanders and let them live somewhere in the resort outside the city. But what's the point of relocating the whole group? Maybe only as a transit on the way to Africa? Why do they even go to Africa? They are not representing Russia there. Who will be their cover over there? Yeah, that's a good question. So there is that news that Yevgeny Prigozhin could be in Petersburg the day before yesterday, and yesterday flight radar tracked Embraer Legacy airplane with the number RA0795, which is supposedly used by Wagner, took off from Minsk to Moscow, and this plane is connected usually with Prigozhin Travels. And there is another jet. Mark also goes over the numbers that flew into Petersburg and then left that city the next morning. So there were two planes coming in and out. It seems that maybe not Prigozhin himself, but he may be sending planes to pick up his commanders or relatives. But at least they're given sky, right? I would say it this way, Mark. For the organizer of a mutiny, he's enjoying an unprecedented freedom, both him and his officers and relatives. Is it a proof that they're trying to buy time and not touch him for a while and maybe get to him later? I don't exactly know how that will unfold. I suspect he will not be forgiven. We'll just observe how and when the punishment will occur. Or there'll be another row of events when he might be on the horse again, but I suspect then it has to be, the choice needs to be made, because both of them, neither him nor Putin, can be together in power. It's funny. He could have poisoned Putin so many times when he was catering for him. Yeah, true, but at the same time, Putin's meals are usually tested, so it's not so easy. And it's curious how people will react further in the future towards Wagner officials when those people who started mutiny against the current political system in Russia, current political regime. So I wonder who will have to disappear, because two of them cannot exist in that field. There's another very specific newspaper in Russia, Fontanka, made a statement that somebody looking like Prigozhin was noticed in his office on Vasilievsky Island on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of June. 28th is today when we're shooting this video. And some people also mentioned that he was seen in the first half of a day at one of the offices of Wagner. And it could have been the actual Prigozhin, because there were also jets that usually are used by Prigozhin. Somebody also saw a person looking like Prigozhin near Hotel Trezini, where he was meeting his supposed officers. So I don't know. This information could be just an injection to muddy the waters. That is also a known technique, but Prigozhin himself also has been commented that he is in Belarus at the time, so it's difficult to pin exactly geolocation on him. Mark, the overall situation when there's a lot of information coming in, coming out, contradicting information, Putin himself promising to deliver some remarkable speech and then reading something very brief. So that all, I think, tells us that it's not so much for informing us of something, but for concealing something from us. So for me, I would say that the process is going. It didn't disappear. It's still brooding. So if we find that Surovikin would be arrested, then the conflict between military and Putin and Prigozhin is much longer and much deeper than we could even imagine. And Belarus Special Services actually could have been involved in part of it. So then the whole story becomes somewhat international, especially with their bases being accepted on Belarus as a prospect. So in any case, there is something still going on, that's for sure. We'll see the scale of this conflict soon, when information about arrests will be confirmed or denied, dispelled. Would it be Surovikin? Would it be somebody else? Could be not him, could be some other faces, right? All right, we'll continue monitoring the situation. I can say one thing, Mark. One of the signs of the depth of this conflict is that there are no immediate arrests, which would be logical, right? That would be logical, because if you want to punish your mutineers, that's what you do. If there was a military machine that indeed mutinied against you, and you know that this is localized just in that part of branch, you can arrest everybody overnight, right? But that's not happening. That is a possible sign of the scale of that crack, of that issue in different layers of political class in Russia. Because it could be not just military generals involved, it could be some other generals. Right. Okay. We have 163,000 watching us. We're continuing our poll. 34,000 voted. If the second in command, General Surovikin of Russian military operation, will be arrested. No, 20% 28% saying yes, and 31% saying nobody gives a flying F about him. Okay, more casualties, more victims today in Ukraine because of Russian missile attack. Some media reporting that 10 people died near a pizzeria in Kramatorsk and 60 people got wounded. Among dead, 17-year-old woman, sisters, and an 8-month child was wounded. Thankfully, there is no risk for his life. So Kramatorsk is pretty close to the front too, right? And it shows again that it's pretty difficult to cover a lot of cities besides Kiev and some other biggest towns in Ukraine. Of course, it's difficult, Mark. We are bigger than France in size, and we need dozens of systems to intercept cruise missiles or even more sophisticated trajectory ballistic missiles. We need either Patriots or RST. And by the way, I need to remind that we don't even have RST. Germans don't even have RST in their country. We do. They supplied Ukraine first. So that just outlines that this is the biggest war since the Second World War in Europe. And the number of military support needs to be adequate. The volume needs to be adequate to provide enough cover for the country. But we have what we have. They're doing their best, but their industries were not ready for that eventuality. Yeah, indeed. And we also lost 3 more civilians today as a result of another shelling. Let's bring the map. Yeah, it's a difficult map, difficult day. All right, we're opening the map. Please start talking about it. We are showing our viewers Kherson, Olexiy, and Golaya Pristan. Their Russian side is stating that Ukraine has already organized a bit of land on the left bank, and they're saying that Ukrainians already providing air cover, so Russian jets can do nothing about that. And right there in the smack middle of the map, Olexiy, that Ukraine has already crossed the river and is occupied or liberated the Olexiy side, and Russia can do nothing because there are jets getting shot out of the sky and they cannot approach it. So that really concerns them. Who's controlling Antonov Bridge? I can neither confirm nor deny, Mark, but I can confirm that Russian side is reporting that they lost at least 100 of their military troops there in the last 24 hours, and that Ukraine already has a striking group forming in that area. So there are quite loud screams in their media about what's happening in that part. But let's wait for official confirmations and statements from Ukrainian side, or more proof with more videos. But there is a rather serious panic in their communication networks, and they're really concerned about Ukraine crossing the river and going forward. But I do want to say that Russian command is keeping a sizable force on that bank, several brigades worth. So regardless of how many we transfer to the other bank, it will not be an easy walk. It will not be an easy operation. I would say perhaps the goal of this operation is to distract enough Russian troops from Zaporozhye direction to the left bank, just to not let Ukrainian forces cross Dnieper en masse. So it's already good. It means it makes things easier and lighter on Zaporozhye direction. All right, let's move further. Pitikhatki is now colored blue. That means that Russia is trying to counterattack. I think we are holding it. It's just Russian command is sending their troops into counterattack activities. And Zherebyanki, the second settlement next to the blue-colored area in the left 9, is also reported to be the center of heavy fighting. Let's continue going. Then there is another blue protrusion in the middle of the map now towards Rabotina from Novodanilovka, and Russian side is claiming that Ukrainian troops have taken a couple of key heights in the area, but that is probably what's reflected on the map. Our officials have not confirmed that yet. So we're just analyzing what is being reported. There was another message from Russians that we already are supposedly fighting near Staromlinovka to the south of Novoselki, but on the map doesn't really reflect that yet. So the map is somewhat behind. Let's take a look at Mariinka. Russian troops continued their attempts to attack. Avdiivka, same thing, it's still heavy fighting. Now Bakhmut. You see Kurdyumovka, that's the south of Bakhmut. Right here at the bottom. And there is an active push. You can see that some parts are already colored blue towards Klishevka, Kurdyumovka. This is all towards the road to Gorlovka. If that road gets cut, that'll be a very significant event, and the brigade commander who does it should be awarded a Medal of a Hero of Ukraine, because that'll be a big achievement on that part of the front. And also there is an arrow here towards Yagodne and Bakhmut and Solidar. So, and in Bakhmut itself, evil Russian tongues are saying that we have captured, Ukrainian side has liberated several streets already and got a bunch of prisoners. And if you go up north, Russia is activating their troops there, trying to kick us out of Bilogorovka. See 3 arrows trying to target it from different angles, because that's like a bone in their throat that actually holds a lot of their attention, a lot of their troops. And from Bilogorovka, it's only 7 kilometers to Severodonetsk. So they're really concerned after we started motion forward, and that basically would undercut and undermine their efforts up above towards Liman and Yampol, because when you're trying to push forward, somebody's undercutting or cutting off your motion, and then you're risking your troops that they may be shelled from the side. So that isn't really adding any good mood to the Russian command. For every counterattack, there was inadequate surrounding action on the flank, and they have to react to that, and they have to weaken their pressure near Liman. So our command looks like we found a key what to do and how to cull their possible attempts to push forward. And near Kupiansk, there's a smaller scale skirmishes happening there. A lot of shooting up north, across border, Kharkov and Sumy regions. They're shooting at us from across the border. They're targeting sometimes civilian vehicles. They're trying to deploy landmines with distant measures means. So it's a different kind of war happening there. It's not like Avdiivka and Mariinka, but it's still a lot of events happening there, and there's a lot of armed conflict up north as well. Our southern command announced a special bunch of good news from there, but they have not given details yet. They just said that there will be good news coming to the media soon. So we're expecting for them to come out and confirm a few things. Some very successful hits. We have destroyed 5 to 6 brigades of Russian artillery, 560 systems, and a ton of air defense systems. That's the biggest losses throughout this war. Imagine 5 or 6 artillery brigades destroyed in just a month. This is a huge number. Not an army in the world can weather these losses without noticing it. Eventually the whole system will crack. And if you look attentively at all the news coming from the front, even on the Russian side, you can see where is it going to. And everything is getting pushed to the main defense line of Russian troops in the areas that really start to concern Russian General Command. especially given their idiotic tendency to waste the forces that they would have needed to defend the first line, to waste these forces on mindless counterattacks on the Ukrainian troops. They do have a short-term significance of slowing us down, but they don't have strategic perspective. So situation is slowly changing in our favor, just by the laws of big numbers. All right, we've been live for about 25 minutes, and let's discuss next news, which I think are important. Lithuania is buying NASAMS for Ukraine. We'll also give APCs and ammo. Overall support provided by Lithuania is over 500 million euros. 2 NASAMS systems will be prepared for Ukraine military to be able to be integrated into their air defense systems. The cost of this contract is 9.8 million euros, and it will be not just NASAM systems, but also armored personnel carriers, which now will reach the number of 72 since the moment they started supplying that from Lithuania. So that, and also thousands of ammo for anti-tank rifles and systems. So I wanted to ask you, that scheme when manufacturers of these weapons are not giving them to Ukraine directly. They're using, of course, NATO countries, but these NATO countries are not the ones that manufacture these F-16s and NASAMS. The countries that are active members of NATO or countries of the West, like Denmark, do you think there is something in it? That does it mean that the United States are afraid to send military support directly? No, I don't think it's that. I think they're playing with their own public opinion with this. How do you mean? Well, we sent our military support to Denmark and to NATO countries, and they'd made a decision to transfer them to Ukraine. So for some of their voters, I think that's good enough of a statement. Anyway, that seems to be an easier. It also might alleviate some concerns of China that, America is not directly supporting the front, but using NATO and other systems. Today, our president was discussing a national doctrine, covers a lot of economic and security questions, and of course that we are heading to European Union and NATO, that we are preparing for a summit, and we understand that Poland and Lithuania came to discuss their final position before the NATO summit in Vilnius. They came over to Ukraine, and I would say we don't have better friends than Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, the Nordic Scandinavian countries. These countries are aware of what it means to face Russian regime, and they are doing everything they can so we not lose this war, but that we could win this war. And it's not just going from mathematical calculations, but it goes from the purity of their hearts, because they're feeling for it. They know how it matters. They know what it means. So these NASAMS, they're a fantastic gift. They're awesome systems, and I think they have not missed a single target since the beginning of war. Zaluzhny and Milley also discussed today. Zaluzhny confirmed with Milley that we have taken strategic initiative in this war. This thing doesn't mean much to the civilian population who are not familiar with the intricacies of waging wars, but it's huge for the specialists. Also, security forces of Ukraine continue to move forward. On the front, the enemy is resisting, trying to hold their positions by blanketly mining approaches to their positions, placing landmines and anti-tank mines, and that's their last-ditch effort to hold. That's what was discussed also at this meeting, and We, for example, I think can ask for correction of certain nomenclature so we get better tools to clear the minds. There are a lot of good systems to do that. So, another news I wanted to bring up, Olexiy, it was discussed in light of 11th package of sanctions that Hungarian parliament has postponed their voting about Sweden's joining of NATO. So, do you think there is a chance for Sweden to join NATO in this Vilnius summit, and that they will resolve all these contradictions before it starts with the position of Turkey and all? It's difficult to say, Mark, because, Swedish police today allowed another action for some activists to burn Quran. Did anybody burn? No, not, I don't know yet, but at least it was announced that they can, that it's now not a prohibited action. And I think this doesn't add any cheer to Erdogan and Turkey, but Sweden is rather calm because they have systems of defense treaties which essentially equalizes them in their current position as to a position that they would take if they were a NATO member. So they can stay without official membership of NATO just fine. They prefer to avoid some of the sharp conflicts with Turkey and Hungary, apparently, because they consider their current leadership to be a temporary event. And in the meantime, Urban from Hungary made another ridiculous statement. He said that he doesn't consider Putin to be a criminal, and he's still thinking that Ukraine is not an independent state. Even Kremlin propaganda doesn't allow themselves to take that position. Even Moscow, Putin's mouthpieces learned some respect to Ukraine, and they're already discussing the questions of possible Russian collapse, possible losing some regions and all. While in the meantime, Hungary, as if nothing is happening, coming out and making this beginning of war-like propaganda statements. Which reek of Russian propaganda, but we understand that Hungary's position, and Hungary is blocking another 500 million of help from Europe. But Europe has already found a way to leverage their pressure on Hungary, so I think they will find that lever again. All right, so another notion about NATO. I heard that Stoltenberg is staying for another year, that he will stay running that system for at least another year, even though there were a lot of discussions, and initially some people were predicting that maybe Boris Johnson would take that position, but he's got his own problems. Ben Wallace was another Minister of Defense of Great Britain, was another good candidate, but it seems that they are going to put it on him to continue and conclude the leadership of NATO during this war. How good is this candidacy for Ukraine? Well, Mark, he's a public proponent of Ukraine joining NATO. He says that the only condition blocking Ukraine from joining NATO is winning the war. And he is also actively helping us to fulfill that condition. So he's a very good candidacy for us, and we can ask a question as well. Is it even important to change him for anybody else? It's one of those situations when we don't want to change horses during the river crossing, right? Or not look for, that better is the enemy of the good. Yeah, that one. Because replacing a NATO secretary, a NATO leader, is going to cause at least 6 months for the new person to get into the weeds and understand all the intricacies. So probably it's a good decision to keep the current leadership. All right, we touched on that topic as well. We have 207,000 watching us live. 66,000 of you clicked the like button. We're continuing our poll. It's minute 35 of our stream. Will the second in command of special military operation, as they call it in Russia, General Surovikin, be arrested? Yes, 34%. No, 29%. Nobody gives a flying F about him, 37%. Those who have not voted yet, please, you have another 10-minute window to do that, especially from the ranks of those 200,000 who are watching us live. Please leave your vote. It, of course, is not scientific, but we would understand the attitude of people. And of course, do not forget to click the like button. That is important. That helps YouTube algorithms to promote that stream. And do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station. We have another news. Today, Putin visited Dagestan. This is another strange thing. He's zigging and zagging throughout the Russian regions. 3 days ago, he could have ended in prison somewhere in Valdai, like an Iron Mask in reverse. I don't know, some Iron Maiden and chastity belt made for him. But regardless of those events of the last week, he started some of his trips. And all that rush of activity, awarding medals to some people in Moscow, doing meetings, visiting Dagestan, that looks like some hassle. You described his reaction connected with his statement, but do you think this is compensating for the lack of him during the mutiny? Is he trying to conceal the weakness that he demonstrated? Is he trying to bring some high level of activity to the media? No, I think Mark is checking the loyalty of the forces in the regions and also wants to reinforce the existing loyalties. So he awarded a few people, and then he went to Dagestan because he probably might be interested in their position in light of what is going on in Caucasus, in Caucasian region. So, yeah, I think he might have been surprised by Kadyrov troops not reaching Rostov in time and getting supposedly stuck in traffic on the highway. So he could have went to Dagestan to reconfirm the Dagestan allegiance instead, just in case. All right. Majority of Americans, 65%, and I've seen this number in different news, they are for military support of Ukraine. And also they understand that this actually shows China and other countries in the world that the United States is eager to defend its interests and the interests of its allies in the world. At the end of May, there were only 46%, and now it's 65%. That's a huge jump. I was wondering if that is related to the weakening of Trump positions in the Republican electorate, or maybe that has some reflection in the Ukrainian question. I think his narrative with this is not our war, let's stand aside, that might be reflecting that. What do you think? Yeah, I think that that position that Trump was peddling will not fly, really, because as we look into the Senate and Congressman positions, there are a lot of those red senators and congressmen who are very loud and vocal about supporting Ukraine. And it seems like Trump's voice was very low in trying to not participate in this conflict. And we can see that all kinds of support, all different systems that are being supplied to Ukraine, they are reflective of large support by American society and Senate and Congress and military specialists, that everybody is generally in agreement that Ukraine needs support. And there's a slight difference in that position, that the United States might not be interested in getting deep into the civilizational deeds of Iran and China and even Russia, but they don't want definitely these countries to change their areas of influence and to interject themselves into American politics. So, and since the hottest spot now is Russia, the active war, Iran is sometimes a conflict and China is rarely. So there is definitely a consensus out there in America about that. And I think this will be reflected soon in new systems being supplied to Ukraine. I have, call it a weird feeling, a good weird feeling that we might get more. And also, Taiwan also came out and said that they'll be shooting down the Chinese jets if they get again into the 12-mile no-fly zone. So that's the stern position they're taking. Apparently, they do have enough support from the United States to take it. So, right? Okay, another statement made by Peskov, Putin's press secretary, to the journalists. He gave a very detailed commentary today, saying that Russia is not hitting civilian infrastructure, trying to address accusations of Kiev that their missiles hit Kramatorsk, hit a pizzeria there, and killed a lot of people. So yeah, it's not Russia, it's Martians, right? Then he said that army was with Putin since the beginning of mutiny. That's even funnier statement. The news about Surovikin possibly knowing about mutiny is just speculation. Government had no relation to Wagner activities in Africa. That's another funny statement. And Russia will continue its actions in foreign regions with military advisors as we see fit. We'll negotiate with a special messenger of Rome, and we'll discuss Vatican's efforts to resolve Ukrainian crisis. Bushakov will be meeting with Pope's representatives. He used to be ambassador to United States, by the way, second ambassador. Also, Putin is discussing tourism questions in Dagestan. So see, officially, he's going there as a tourist. Right, military tourism, I suppose, Mark. Right, you can do a fantastic trip. Melitopol, Mariupol, Grozny, the catacombs of Grozny, and Chernokozova jail, and probably visiting a few similar hotspots in Chabanmahi, Karavanmahi in Dagestan, how historic events unfolded there about over a dozen years ago. So these are the news for today. Today is the birthday of Elon Musk. Oh, yeah, the man who is actually supporting Ukrainian military. And in the meantime, he is also causing some damage with his mysterious tweets. He tweeted that in Jiu-Jitsu he won over Lex Friedman, a known blogger, a professor of artificial intelligence from MIT. Lex Friedman actually was born in Eastern Europe. He speaks Russian. I gave him a huge interview last year. He has not released it on his channel. I'm very curious why he has not. He might see our stream and do that. But anyway, they did spar, and they called Zuckerberg to referee. It's interesting. Mother prohibited Musk to do certain things, and yeah, it's interesting news from the world of eccentric billionaires. Right, people are doing funny stuff while earning billions. Right, and in regards to Ukraine, his position seems rather silly. Yeah, that's true, but he's helping us. Objectively, he's definitely helping. Without his Starlinks, especially at the beginning of this war, and even now, it would have been very, very difficult for us. So we can wish him health and good luck. All right, 44 minutes, we've been live. 214,000 are watching us live. We are finishing our poll if the commander of special military operations, Surovikin, will be arrested. 64,000 voted. Yes, 34%. No, 29%. Nobody gives a flying F about him, 37%. This is the temperature of the room, so to say. And we conclude our stream. And you never know, maybe he gets arrested or something may happen. He could have been already arrested, right? We wouldn't know. Not immediately, right. Mark, how important do you need to be for your own country that people answering a poll would answer that who gives a flying F about him, the majority, right? And that is the so-called General Armageddon trumpeted by Putin as the doom's general for the war. But he managed to leave her son for Ukraine. That's about it. He's not known for anything else. So it's interesting, interesting trajectory from that to going to jail possibly. But we'll see. And that's it for today. We'll see you on Saturday next time, as usual. We have the usual schedule. And at 10 p.m. Kiev and Moscow time, we'll discuss the news, what unfolds in the coming 2 days. Note from Privateer Station, the translation will be out in the morning on Sunday, about 9 Eastern. And please continue clicking the like buttons. This is very important for us. And for our Russian language viewers, there are other streams going on the Feygin channel. And see you. Have a good day.